Imagine driving to see your elderly mom at her care facility only to be stopped at the door and told, visits are restricted. Your heart drops. You think, are they hiding something? I want to tell you something plainly. Under U.S. federal law, a nursing home cannot just arbitrarily shut you out. So if those doors suddenly close on you, something specific is happening behind them. And today I'm going to walk you through the 5 real reasons that actually holds up and what each one means for the person you love. Here's the thing I wish more people knew going in. A facility can only limit your visit for what the law calls a reasonable clinical or safety reason, and they're required to tell your loved one in plain language they can actually understand, not some form letter or exactly what that reason is. That one fact changes how you should handle that moment at the door. You don't have to just nod, turn around, and drive home wondering. You're allowed to ask for the reason out loud, calmly, and in writing if you want it. I know what that hallway moment feels like. You've planned your afternoon around this visit. Maybe you brought something with you, a photo, her favorite candy, a fresh set of clothes, and a staff member you've never even met before tells you, without much explanation, that today just isn't a good day. You're standing there holding whatever you brought, not sure if you should push back, wait around, or just leave quietly and hope tomorrow's different. That not knowing is the hardest part. Harder, honestly, than most answers would be, because your mind fills in the blanks with the worst version of the story. So here's something you can start doing right away. The next time this happens, ask directly, what's the specific clinical or safety reason for this, and can I get that in writing? You don't need a lawyer for this. You don't need to file a complaint. This is simply a right you already have, and asking it plainly tends to get you a real answer instead of a shrug. Let's go through the 5 reasons, one at a time. The first one, and the one families run into most often, is a contagious illness moving through the building. When something like the flu, norovirus, or a new respiratory bug starts spreading among residents, the facility is required to take infection control steps, and sometimes that means a temporary restriction in the specific unit where it showed up. They'll usually start by testing everyone in that area before deciding whether to widen the restriction or lift it. This isn't the facility hiding something from you. It's a documented process with its own timeline, often tied to how many days pass without a new case appearing. But here's what's important. Federal guidance is clear that a facility generally cannot shut out visitors from the entire building if the illness is contained to just one hallway or floor. So if you're told the whole facility is closed, but staff mention the outbreak is only in one wing, that's a gap worth asking about directly. The second reason is protecting your loved one's roommate. Every resident in that room, including the person sharing it with your mom or dad, has a legal right to privacy and a reasonably peaceful environment. If your visit is happening at a time or in a way that disturbs that roommate's sleep or treatment, a loud conversation late in the evening, or a big group crowding into a small shared space, the facility can ask you to move your visit somewhere else, and I want to be clear that is not the same thing as banning you from seeing your loved one. It's redirecting where you visit. The facility is required to offer you another space to use, like a lounge or a private visiting room, instead of just sending you away. Now, here's something that surprises a lot of families, and I think it's worth sitting with for a moment. The facility has to tell your loved one specifically and in words they understand exactly which restriction applies, why, and who it's aimed at, not a general policy sheet from the day they moved in, an actual explanation tied to what's actually happening right now. If nobody's given you or your loved one that explanation, you're entitled to ask for it, and they're supposed to give it to you. The third reason is harder to talk about, but it happens more than people expect, usually out of love rather than bad intent. Sometimes a family member, worried and trying to help, starts adjusting medication timing based on what worked at home, or steps in to stop a physical therapy session because it looks too hard that day, or repeatedly overrides decisions the care team and the resident had already agreed to together. When a facility documents a real pattern of this, not one hard conversation, but a repeated pattern working against the treatment plan, they can limit that one visitor's access for safety reasons, even while everyone else in the family keeps visiting freely. Have you ever walked away from a visit wondering if something you pushed back on in a hard moment got written down as more serious than you meant it? I'd sit with that question for a second because it leads right into the next reason, and it's the one most families are least prepared for. The fourth reason is documented safety concerns, and this includes conflict between family members. If a visitor has behaved in a hostile or threatening way toward staff or toward the resident, the facility can restrict that person and they're expected to document exactly what happened. But this category also covers something quieter: ongoing disputes between family members, often over power of attorney or money, that spill over into visits. A parent caught in the middle of two adult children arguing at the bedside or overhearing tense phone calls about finances can end up more hurt by the conflict than helped by the visit itself. When a facility documents that kind of conflict as harmful to a resident's well-being, they can limit visitation, sometimes to specific people, not the whole family. And here's a fact I think every family should know, even if you never end up needing it. No matter what restriction is in place, there's one visitor who can never be blocked: the state long-term care ombudsman. This is a government-appointed advocate whose entire job is protecting residents like your loved one, and they're completely independent from the facility itself. Federal rules require the facility to let that advocate in immediately, no matter what other restrictions are in effect, and to let them review records when needed. If you ever feel a restriction isn't about safety at all, that it's being used unfairly, this is the office whose whole purpose is to step in and look into it, and there's no cost to your family for reaching out to them. The fifth reason, and the one people talk about least, is staffing shortages tied to supervised visit requirements. Some residents, because of a specific behavioral or safety concern the care team has already identified, need their visits to happen with a staff member in the room. And if the facility is short-staffed at that particular hour, which, given how common staffing shortages are right now, most of us realize there may not be anyone free to supervise